To say this word correctly, we're going to start with the F sound. Let's put it all together. Fact.
Around.
Fact.
Around.
Fact.
Around.
Fact. Fact. Fact.
Around.
And find out.
So I've been thinking about this a little bit lately. You know the popular song, The Monster Mash?
Yes, I'm familiar.
You do realize we've never actually heard The Monster Mash. The Monster Mash song is a song about the song Monster Mash.
Oh, that's true.
Because they're about the dance. They did the mash. They did the Monster Mash.
That's true.
It was a graveyard smash. But we actually have never heard the Monster
Well,
Mash.
I thought the Monster Mash was a dance.
Yeah, it's a song about the dance to the song, the Monster. No one's ever actually seen or heard the actual Monster Mash.
It caught on in a flash, I heard.
Yes.
You know?
And it's fascinating because I thought about that. I saw some reel or whatever on the internet, and a girl broke it down. I was like, son of a bitch. I've never thought about this. Like, she's like, every time you've heard the Monster Mash, you actually don't know. Like, it's just a song about it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that would go with like the twist.
We know what the twist is.
You know, all those like 50s doo-wop kind of. Is that doo-wop? Is that technically doo-wop? I don't know.
Some of that's doo-wop-esque, doo-wop adjacent. Yes. But yeah, no, nobody's ever actually seen the Monster Mash.
No one's ever seen the Monster
Mash.
Spooky. Now we got there.
Well, welcome back into another episode of Fact Around and Find Out. See, that's a fact.
It's a fact.
That right there was a fact.
It's a fact.
I am your host, Justin White. Happy to be hanging out here with my friend Bill.
Yeah, Bill, the spooky, kooky co-host, also host Bill West. Not co-host. Don't say co-host. I'll get in trouble if I say that.
I explained to a friend, a listener actually, who's also a friend yesterday, where that came from.
Yeah.
Why is it the also host? I was like, if you go way back, like to like the third episode that Bill was on, just after Ruby Ridge, after we finished the Ruby Ridge 2-parter, you fumbled it for a second. You're like, and I'm your, because you were new to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, and I was like, and I'm your host, Justin White. And you said, and I'm also, I'm co and I'm your also host, Bill.
And
like
it
just came out. It's not that bad. I'm exaggerating it, obviously. But it was really funny that you just embraced the fact that you fumbled it, and I didn't edit it out. So we left it in, and that's where it came from. Was you fumbled it right off the bat?
Well, the reference that we reference all the time, the Kia Ferralia,
yes,
is from last year's Halloween episode.
We found that out the other day. You found that, not we.
Yeah.
Found it out and told me. So yeah, happy Kia Ferralia season. It's like the Kia Ferralia Fest or whatever.
It is definitely Ferralia Fest.
It's Ferralia Fest. It's like the mattress sales at Memorial Day or something. Halloween is Ferralia Fest for us now.
Ferralia was like an ancient pagan holiday, and I said it sounds like something that Kia would make. So the Kia Ferralia.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where it came from.
We were talking about, what's the word? It looks like it's spelled Sam Hain, but it's actually Sowen.
Yeah.
Sowen, yeah. But I was, in my mind, I still say Sam Hain in my brain, but it's pronounced Sowen.
Sam Hain in the membrane.
So we got a couple of Sam Hain in the membrane.
Yeah, dude.
Sam Hain in the fucking brain,
there you
bro.
Go, dude.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, we got 4 good stories for you today.
3 good stories, 1 okay story, I would say.
Okay.
I'm not going to say which is which. I don't know the stories you're telling, so I'm making promises I can't even keep right now.
Yeah. I'd like to think that mine are okay. Every listener submitted story that we received, I want you to know I threw them all in the garbage and I put them all in the dumpster. And I said, y'all stories are trash. We're going to pick our own because y'all sent us the worst. Seriously, like, I love our listeners, and you guys sent us steamy turds of stories this time. Last year, y'all crushed it.
It's hard to hate on it when it's nothing. We got no stories from you guys. Little peek behind the curtain here.
None of y'all sent us a damn story, but that's okay. I'm looking at you, Nancy.
Nancy's contributed. She's done her share of lifting. We got to give her credit there.
Yeah, I can't be mad at Nancy. Yeah. All right, so you're going to start us off with a good one.
Yeah, I will. This is called Lazy Saturday Night. So this is a creepypasta story. It's very short, but I'm going to really try to get into character here.
Okay, what music do you want behind you?
Okay, so to start off, I want something nice and like relaxed. Maybe some light jazz,
Okay.
some nice, light jazz. But then you'll see there's a point where it's going to turn. And when it turns, I want you to change the music behind me. So Justin does some soundscapes on this episode for Halloween. Here I lay, all snuggled up in bed, warm and satisfied under the soft silk covers, watching some stupid documentary on TV I've never even heard of. I'd change the channel, but the gallon tub of cookie dough ice cream wouldn't let me use my hands for anything other than shoveling the frozen treat into my mouth. Nights like these are rare. It isn't often that everyone's out of the house but me, so I make sure to savor them. In fact, I wasn't expecting anyone to be back until morning. That's what made the sound of the door opening downstairs so alarming. Panic hit me like a steam train. I silently leap out from under the covers, spilling the ice cream all over the white, pristine carpet on the floor, and I creak open the wardrobe next to the bed. I hear footsteps. They're heavy and indiscreet, like they want me to know they're here. I pant, and I pick up the spoon that I had just been using to enjoy a relaxing night. The footsteps are getting louder. I force myself into the tiny space remaining in the wardrobe and close the door, just as a stranger opens the bedroom door, not sparing any second for silence. I peer through the gap. His face looks familiar, but I can't place my finger on where I know him from. He spots the spilled ice cream and darts his head across the wide expanse of the bedroom. "Hello?" he calls out, not sounding vicious, but I've made that mistake before. Never, under any circumstances, assume friendliness in a voice. He looks under the bed. Oh crap, he's looking for someone. I hold back a whimper, and I start bending the bowl of the spoon back and forth, hoping to snap it off to create some way of defending myself. It snaps, but it creates a metallic click. The man turns his head around and makes his way towards the wardrobe. I'm shaking now. Please don't open it. Please don't open it. Please don't open it. The door swings open and he sees me. We scream simultaneously in fear and surprise. Without hesitation, I leap onto the man. I start digging into whatever stretch of flesh with the sharp edge of the spoon handle, and he screeches in clear pain, but I won't stop. I hammer the handle deep into his chest and neck, over and over and over, until he becomes motionless. I've killed him. I cry in disgust, and I sprint down the stairway from the house. I charge down the road until I feel like I'm far enough away. I sit down for a moment and I exhale heavily before regaining my composure. Pulling out my phone, I open Twitter and I search #party. Hopefully this time, I'll find a household that isn't lying when they say they'll be out all night.
Well, that took a
What a
That's murder.
twist ending, right?
murder.
So homegirl, I pictured a girl. Homegirl was like hanging out, just like eating ice cream at somebody else's house, and they come home, so she decides to kill him to death.
Yeah, that's like I said, it's murder.
And she ate their ice cream.
It's like it's not even like a good old fashioned B&E. It's just I like it. I like it. That's a good story.
Yeah, I enjoyed the twist ending on that one. That's why I picked that one.
Where did you find that one?
That was on creepypasta.com. Yeah, it's a great website. There's so many stories on there, and I searched for a nice short one to get us started off. And I looked and looked and looked and found one with a good twist ending. So I thought that was a solid start. Yeah,
There are a bunch on there.
Yeah.
I read through quite a few myself since you buttheads didn't send us anything.
We still love you, though.
Very much. So this one has been referenced by us the last at least 3 episodes. Every episode in October for sure. We've referenced this one. And I think the last of September we did as well in one episode. So this one is called, Have You Checked the Children? A married couple were going out for the evening and called in a teenage babysitter to take care of their 3 children. When she arrived, they told her they probably wouldn't be back until late and that the kids were already asleep, so she needn't disturb them.
Needn't is a good word. I feel like we should use that more. Needn't.
Needn't?
Yeah.
Needn't? I like it as well. The babysitter starts doing her homework while awaiting a call from her boyfriend. After a while, the phone rings. She answers it, but hears no one on the other end, just silence. Then whoever it is hangs up. After a few more minutes, the phone rings again. She answers, and this time there's a man on the line who says in a chilling voice,
Have you checked on the children?
At first she thinks it might have been the father calling to check up, and he got interrupted, so she decides to ignore it. She goes back to her homework, then the phone rings again.
Have you checked on the children?
Says the creepy voice on the other end. Mr. Murphy, she asks? But the caller hangs up again. She decides to phone the restaurant where the parents said they'd be dining, but when she asks for Mr. Murphy, she's told that he and his wife had left the restaurant about 45 minutes earlier. So she calls the police and reports that a stranger has been calling her and hanging up. Has he threatened you? The dispatcher asks. No, she says. Well, there's nothing we can really do about it. You could try reporting the prank caller to the phone company. A few minutes go by, and she gets another call.
Have you checked on the children?
The voice says. Who is this? She asks. But he hangs up again. She dials 911 immediately and says, I'm scared. I know he's out there. I know he's watching me. Ma'am, have you seen him? The dispatcher asks. She says no. Well, there isn't much we can do about it then, the dispatcher says. The babysitter goes into panic mode and pleads with the dispatcher to help her. Now, it'll be okay, he says. Give me your number and street address, and if you can keep this guy on the phone for at least a minute, we'll try to trace the call. What was your name again? Linda, she says. Well, okay, Linda. If he calls back, we'll do our best to trace the call. But just keep calm. Can you do that for me? Yes, she says, and hangs up. She decides to turn the lights down so she can see if anyone's outside, and that's when she gets another call.
It's me.
The familiar voice says.
Why did you turn the lights down?
Can you see me? She asks, panicking.
Yes.
He says after a very long pause. Look, you've scared me, she says. I'm shaking. Are you happy? Is that what you wanted?
No.
Then what do you want? She asks. Another long pause.
Your blood. All over me.
She slams the phone down, terrified. Almost immediately, it rings again. Leave me alone! She screams, but it's the dispatcher calling back. His voice is urgent. Linda, we've traced the call. It's coming from another room inside of the house. Get out now! She tears to the front door, attempting to unlock it and to dash outside, only to find the chain at the top is still latched. In the time it takes her to unhook it, she sees a door open at the top of the stairs. Light streams from the children's bedroom, revealing the profile of a man standing just inside. She finally gets the door open and bursts outside, only to find a cop standing on the doorstep with his gun drawn. At this point, she's safe, of course. But when they captured the intruder and drag him downstairs in handcuffs, she sees he is covered in blood. Come to find out, all 3 children have been murdered.
Ooh, yeah.
Have you checked on the children? The call's coming from inside the house.
It's very, do you think that's where they came up with that from Scream?
I don't know. I mean, it's a trope that's been used a lot, and I've always liked that.
Yeah.
That was one of the first scary stories I remember around campfires, like at camp or whatever.
I kept thinking of jokes to say and just chose to, because I think we're trying to lean in on the spooky. Am I doing it right by not making jokes in the middle of the story?
I think you're doing it. I wanted to make some jokes earlier, and I didn't. I'm doing it just right.
I'll hold on to it unless it's just an absolute banger. I'll bite my tongue through these stories.
Dude, I would be amiss if I was to say that you would be amiss if you didn't jump on a banger.
Right.
If you hear one, like,
Okay.
please,
Yeah.
my friend, please.
No, you did
give me
such
the
a good
bangers.
job of like setting the tone and everything, and I had to let it go, man. That was a good story, man. Solid story. Yeah,
I appreciate
solid
it.
story.
All right, you want to take a quick break?
Quick break. And we are back, baby.
Is that
It's really hard to make that sound creepy. Like,
baby?
let me hear your best creepy. And we are back, baby. Let's see how good you can do.
Picture me on a tricycle,
Okay, I always do. First of all,
completely naked.
so again, we're 2 for 2. Go ahead. Yeah.
I've got a bonnet on, and I got a pacifier hanging from a string around my neck.
Okay.
And I just look at you dead in the windows of your soul.
Okay.
And in the most monotone I can say it, I just go,
We're back, baby.
Yeah, it's good. That you.
or I could do it the high. You could be high. I could just be like, and we're back, baby. I don't know. I think that just like staring at you, I just call you baby.
Yeah.
Maybe all right, picture the same exact thing, but instead I lead off with baby so that you know I'm addressing you as such. So it's just me naked on a tricycle with a bonnet and a pacifier hanging from my neck, and amidst my mane of chest hair, and I just look at you and I go baby.
Yeah. Babe.
Bill, baby.
That reminds me of the creepiest thing I've ever heard. So I was watching this show called Locked Up. Have you ever seen Locked Up?
I've heard about it, yes.
And there was this one guy, they were interviewing him in prison. He was like, if I see some fresh fish that I like, I'll walk up to him and I'll whisper in his ear, I like your booty.
Some fresh fish?
Yeah, dude. That's what
You
they call
refer to them as fish?
That's what they call new prisoners. Yeah. I don't know that I could think of a more terrifying thing that someone could say to me in that situation.
Please don't let me go to prison. Please don't let me go to prison for anything. I won't make it. I'm not gonna do good. I'm not like great looking, but I'm too thin. I'm too pretty.
I'm doing everything I can to not go to prison. So.
God damn it! Right. I'm doing. See now we're talking about scary stories.
That is scary, scary.
Fucking terrifying. Yeah. What you just said is more true than anything I've ever read in the Bible. I'm doing everything I can to not go to prison.
I'm pretty much obeying all the laws at this point.
No, only the.
I haven't done it in my entire life, but
Sure.
But nowadays in my
I'm following
40s,
all the laws that I know that are like prison offense level laws. It's like
I don't want anyone to like my booty.
I don't want anyone. I have someone who's I would like to like my booty, and I hope that person does. I just don't want it. I don't want my booty to be like in that context.
To be a 6'7", 350-pound individual.
I don't want a dude with like teardrops tattooed on his face to ask me, quote, what that booty do. I don't want to have to answer that question. I don't want to answer.
Mostly poop, sir. What I ate all now.
I don't want a guy named Butch or like I don't want a guy named like Spike or something bad to walk up to me and go, damn boy, you shit with that ass. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen.
Put that in list of goals for me to things that I never want to have happen as well.
I'll ask you this: if I go to prison, will you go with me?
Oh man, well I feel like if there's anybody that's the most likely person to talk me into committing a felony is in front of me right now. So that would be you, sir. So yeah, I'm gonna say there's a good chance.
I am that friend.
That's the highest compliment I can give you, other than I like your booty.
Justin asked me if I could drive him to this like one bank and trust.
Yeah. Just sit out here for a minute. It'll be fine.
Hey man, you mind just sitting tight? Keep the engine running.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Why did
yeah.
you say why?
Why don't you put these pantyhose over your face real quick? Just, I thought it's like the kids are doing it now. It's a cool thing. Like,
You know what would make you look really cool right now if you put these if you put this pantyhose over your face.
here, I'll do it too, so you don't feel stupid.
Why do you have a gun? I love it. All right, so that's scary.
That's what
That's
scares
scary
me.
as fuck.
That is absolutely that's what scares me.
I always say that I'm only scared of two things: snakes and my daddy. And that
You've added,
I think I might have found
a new
third.
thing to the list. Yeah.
I added a new thing. Yeah, going to prison with or without Bill.
With or without Bill.
With or without Bill. All right, so you got a scary story. It's the scariest prison lined up for us.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that we're going to top that one, at least in terms of real life fears. But this is actually a true story from Reddit. It supposedly everything on the internet is true, so you have to assume this is right.
100%. Yes.
But this claims to be a true story, and everything that happens in the story could actually happen. So there's nothing, unrealistic about this story, and it is pretty scary. And it's very. I really just like the storytelling here. So there's no title to it, but I'm just going to get started here. So just 1 second. So this is long, and I apologize for that. I've never had to tell this story with enough detail to actually explain it all the way, but it is true, and it happened when I was about 6 years old. In a quiet room, if you press your ear against the pillow, you can hear your own heartbeat. As a kid, the muffled, rhythmic beats sounded like soft footsteps on a carpeted floor. And so as a kid, almost every night, just as I was about to drift off to sleep, I would hear these footsteps. And I'd be ripped back to consciousness, just absolutely terrified. For my entire childhood, I lived with my mother in a fairly nice neighborhood that was in a transitional phase. People of lower economic means were gradually moving in, and my mother and I were two of these people. We lived in a kind of a house you see being transported in two pieces down the interstate, but my mom took good care of it. There were lots of woods surrounding the neighborhood that I would play in and explore during the day, but at night, as things often do when you're a kid, they took on a more sinister feeling. This, coupled with the fact that due to the nature of our house, there was a fairly large crawl space underneath, it filled my mind with imaginary monsters and inescapable scenarios which would consume my thoughts when I was awoken by the footsteps. I told my mom about the footsteps, and she said that I was just imagining things. I persisted enough that she blasted my ears with water from a turkey baster once just to placate me, since I thought it would help. Of course, it didn't. Despite all the creepiness in the footsteps, the only weird thing that ever happened was that every now and then I would wake up on the bottom bunk, despite having gone to sleep on the top. But this wasn't really all that weird, since sometimes I'd get up to piss, or I'd get something to drink, and I could remember just going back to sleep on the bottom bunk. I'm the only child, so it didn't really matter. This would happen once or twice a week, but waking up on the bottom bunk wasn't too terrifying. But one night, I didn't wake up on the bottom bunk. I had heard footsteps, but it was too far gone to be woken up by them. And when I was awoken, it wasn't from the sound of footsteps or a nightmare. It was because I was cold. Like really cold. And when my eyes opened, I saw stars. I was in the woods. I sat up immediately and tried to figure out what was going on. I thought I was dreaming, but that didn't seem right. But neither did me being in the woods in the middle of the night either. There was this deflated pool float right in front of me. One of those that was shaped like a shark. This only added to the surreal feeling, but after a while it seemed like I just wasn't going to wake up because I was not asleep. I stood up to orient myself, but I didn't recognize these woods. I played in the woods by my house all the time, so I knew them really well. But if these weren't the same woods, then how could I get out? I took a step and I felt a shooting pain in my foot, which knocked me back to where I'd been lying. I had stepped on a thorn. By the light of the moon, I could see that they were everywhere. And I looked, my other foot was fine, and as a matter of fact, so was the rest of me. I didn't have another scratch on me, and I wasn't even that dirty. I sat down and I cried for a little bit, and then I stood back up. I didn't know which way to go, so I just picked a direction. I resisted the urge to call out since I wasn't sure if I wanted to be found by who or what might be out there. And I walked for what seemed like hours. I tried to walk in a straight line, and I tried to course correct when I had to take detours. But I was a kid, and I was afraid. There weren't any howls or screams, but only once did I hear a noise that actually scared me. It sounded like a crying baby. I think now it was just a cat, but when I heard it, I panicked, and I ran, veering in different directions to avoid big thicks of brushes and collapsed trees. I was paying close attention to where I stepped because at that point, my feet were in pretty bad shape. And I paid too much attention to where I was stepping and not enough to where those steps were leading, because not long after hearing the cry, I saw something that filled me with the kind of despair I haven't experienced since. It was that damn pool float. I was only 10 feet from where I'd woken up. Yeah, moron.
Sorry.
Great job.
fucking dork.
This wasn't magic or some supernatural space bending. I was just lost. Up until that moment, I thought more about getting out of the woods than how I got in. But being back at the beginning caused my mind to swim. I wasn't even sure that these were my woods, and I had been hoping that they were. Had I run in a huge circle around that spot, or did I just get turned around and start making my way back? How was I getting out of this? At the time, I thought the North Star was just the brightest star, so I looked up, found the brightest star, and just followed it. Eventually, things started to look a little bit more familiar when I saw, quote-unquote, the ditch. The ditch was a dirt ditch that my friends and I would have dirt clot wars in. So I knew I'd made it out. By that point, I was walking really slowly because my feet hurt so much, but I was just so happy to be close to home that I broke into a light jog. When I finally saw the roof of my house, I let out a light sob and ran faster. I just wanted to be home. I'd already decided that I wouldn't say anything because I had no idea what I would even say. I would get back into the house somehow, clean up, and just get in bed. But my heart sunk as I rounded the corner and saw my house fully in view. Every light in the house was on. So my mom knew I was up, and I knew I would have to explain or try to explain where I'd been, and I couldn't even figure out where to start. My run became a jog, which became a walk. I saw her silhouette through the blinds, and although I was worried about how to explain things to her, it really didn't matter to me at that point. I walked up the couple of steps to the porch and put my hand on the doorknob and turned. Right before I pushed it open, two arms wrapped around me and pulled me back. I screamed as loud as I could, "Mom! Please help! Mom!" The feeling of being so close to being safe and then being physically pulled away from it filled me with the kind of dread that is, even after all these years, indescribable. The door I had been torn away from ripped open, and a flash of hope shot through my heart. But it wasn't my mom. It was a man, and he was enormous. He said, "I like your booty." Sorry, throw that in there. I thrashed around and kicked at the shins of the person holding me while I was trying to get away from the person who had just come out of my house. I was scared, but I was furious. "Let me go! Where is she? Where's my mom? What did you do to her?" As my throat stung from screaming and I was drawing another breath, I became aware of a sound that had been present for longer than I had even perceived it. "Honey, please calm down. I've got you." It sounded like my mom. The arms loosened and set me down, and as the man approaching me blocked out the porch light with his head, I noticed his clothes, and he was a cop. I turned to face the voice behind me and saw that it really was my mom, and everything was okay. I began to cry, and the three of us went inside. "I'm so glad you're home, sweetie. I was worried I'd never see you again." And by that point, she was sobbing too. "I'm sorry, Mom. I don't know what happened. I just wanted to come home. I'm sorry." "It's okay. Just don't ever do that again. I'm not sure me or my shins could take it." A little laughter broke through my sobs, and I smiled a bit. "Well, I'm sorry for kicking you, but why'd you grab me like that?" "Well, I was afraid you'd run away again." I was confused. "What do you mean, Mom?" "We found your note on the pillow," she said. And she pointed to a piece of paper that the police officer was sliding across the table. I picked up the note and read it. It was a running away letter. It said that I was unhappy and I never wanted to see her or any of my friends again. The police officer exchanged a few words with my mom on the porch while we stared at the letter. I didn't remember writing a letter. I didn't remember anything about any of this. But even if sometimes I went to the bathroom in the middle of the night and didn't remember, or even if I could have gone into the woods on my own, even if all of that could be true, the only thing I knew at that point was, this isn't how you spell my name. I didn't write that letter.
It's the goddamn police. You can't trust them.
She got framed.
They planted that fucking.
They planted
note.
the letter.
They're planting evidence against a child. A child.
Yep.
That's my
You got it,
takeaway
man.
from that.
That's
That's my
the
takeaway.
answer. That's the answer to it. Yeah.
What's the scariest part of the story? When the cops showed up. No one's like, oh, I can tell you, I've never been like, oh, sweet, it's the cops.
That's when your heart started beating faster when you heard the cops were there.
Hell yeah, the cops are here. Said nobody ever. Fuck yeah,
You know what would
the
make this
cops.
party better? If a
Some
cop was here.
I love when the cops show up to my parties. They don't ever try to stop us from participating in our southern shenanigans. Everyone loves it when the cops show up. That's a good story.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I like the way it ended. I thought it was cool. I like the stories that end on a little, some kind of twist or something a little spooky there. In all honesty, she continued her story a little past that, but I thought this was the best place to end it, was that part right there.
Wait a second. Where did she take the story from there?
Then they just went and had cheeseburgers. Come on, kid. We're going to go have frosty chocolate milkshake.
This is Officer Dogood.
Nah, it's just like I moved out of the neighborhood and blah, blah, blah. It was, anyway. That was the best place to end it.
I got you. Yeah, it's like Officer Dogood showed up and decided he was going to make everything right. And then he took us out for milkshakes and sody pops.
And now he's my stepdad.
And turns out he and my mom have been seeing each other for quite some time.
My house no longer has wheels.
I almost said that at the beginning of the story when you're like the under part of the house. I was like, you mean where the wheels are?
And then that Christmas, I opened up my last present under the tree. It was an inflatable shark. Floating. Pool floating.
This is, I told Bill off mic that I purposefully chose a challenge, and I'm somewhat concerned about actually admitting this, because if some of you hear this, well, I'll just say it. I picked one that I knew would be difficult for me to read.
Justin's a very good reader, by the way, guys.
I'm an okay reader. I'm afraid that some of you are going to hear it and go, well, that's not fucking hard at all. Like, that just means you're sort of stupid. And that's scary to me.
So you're scaring yourself now?
Yeah, I'm scaring myself now that somebody's going to be like, well, I don't know. That wasn't that hard.
That just means you read it well.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you,
That
Bill.
just means you did a good job.
This is why I need you in prison with me, because after a large man named
You bit that
Turnstile,
pillow so well, Justin.
dude, that's what I was gonna say.
Like-
After a large man named like Turnstile or something, like gets done having his way with me, you're like, Justin, you really did a good job of not crying. You only cried a couple times,
And you're like, why didn't you help me at all?
why
were you helping
why
him?
did you-
Like,
You like patted him on the back. I saw that, Bill. I saw that.
I was trying to hold your hand. I wasn't trying to hold your arms down.
You're like joined like some weird Aryan group. And I didn't
got
know
the
that you already
hairstyle
have the
for it
shaved
with my
head.
bald head, yeah.
Yeah, because you're already bald. And I'm like, I can't get away with that yet. I've got the beard, but not the shaved head
You
for
can
it
always
yet.
shave your head, buddy. It's okay.
I knew when we showed up at prison together, when you screamed, all lives matter, that this was not going to go well for either of us. I was like, I don't know him. And you were like calling me by my government name. You're like, Justin, what?
You know what we need in this prison? Tolerance. I'm gonna spread it to everybody. They're like, yo, that guy's gonna die. Like,
Bill's first words when we get to prison are like, does anybody notice that white people have it kind of hard too?
That actually might do me well in prison, actually, that point of view.
with the shaved head, only in certain parts. Like
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's certain parts that you can't go in the yard. You can't alone, not alone.
Yeah.
You ever notice that Bill always showers in pairs? He's like, strength in numbers, motherfucker. You're like, I don't know, man. This isn't really for me. I'm just gonna stay in myself. So this story is called "The Boarded Window: An Incident in the Life of an Ohio Pioneer." It's a short story by American Civil War soldier and writer Ambrose Bierce. It was first published in the San Francisco Examiner on April the 12th, 1891. It was reprinted the same year in Bierce's collection called Tales of Soldiers and Civilians. All right, future Justin, cue up that music. Let's go. You got it, past Justin. Thanks, future Justin.
What if future Justin, like, all messed up sounding like...
I can't speak to what future Justin's going to do. Future Justin might be like...
You've got it.
He's like,
present, Justin.
I'm going to give you some stupid fucking music, bro. I'm going to fuck you up. The Boarded Window by Ambrose Bierce. In 1830, only a few miles away from what is now the great city of Cincinnati, lay an immense and almost unbroken forest. The whole region was sparsely settled by people of the frontier, restless souls who no longer had hewn fairly habitable homes out of the wilderness and attained to that degree of prosperity which today we should call indigence. Than, impelled by some mysterious impulse of their nature, they abandoned all and pushed forward westward to encounter new perils and privations in an effort to regain and merge comforts which they had voluntarily renounced. Many of them had already forsaken that region for the remoter settlements, but among those remaining was one who had been of those first arriving. He lived alone in a house of logs, surrounded on all sides by the great forest, of whose gloom and silence he seemed a part. For no one had ever known him to smile, nor speak a needless word. His simple wants were supplied by the sale or barter of skins of wild animals in the river town. For not a thing did he grow upon that land which, if needful, he might have claimed by right of undisturbed possession.
I like this.
There were evidences of, quote, improvement. A few acres of ground immediately about the house had once been cleared of its trees, the decayed stumps of which were half concealed by the new growth that had been suffered to repair the ravage wrought by the axe. Apparently the man's zeal for agriculture had burned with a failing flame, expiring in penitential ashes. The little house, with its chimney of sticks, its roof of warping clapboards weighted with traversing poles, and its chinking of clay, had a single door and directly opposite a window. The latter, however, was boarded up. Nobody could remember a time when it was not. And none knew why it was so closed, certainly not because of the occupant's dislike of light and air, for on those rare occasions when a hunter had passed that lonely spot, the recluse had commonly been seen sunning himself on the doorstep, if heaven had provided sunshine for his need. I fancy there are a few persons living today who ever knew the secret of that window, but I am one, as you shall see.
Is this a song by the Decemberists?
Yes. Dude, I swear to God, it sounds like Colin Malloy, am I right?
Yeah, for real.
The man's name was said to be Murlock. He was apparently 70 years old, actually about 50. Something besides years had a hand in his aging. His hair long, full beard was white, his gray, lustreless eyes sunken, his face singularly seamed with wrinkles which appeared to belong to two intersecting systems. In figure, he was tall and spare, with a stoop of the shoulders, a burden bearer. I never saw him. These particulars I learned from my grandfather, from whom I also got the man's story when I was a lad. He had known him when living nearby in that early day.
All right, so let's just recap where we're at right now. So there's this guy.
All right. Yeah, you kind of have to at this point.
Yeah, there's a guy.
There's a dude named Murlock who lives in a cabin in the woods of Ohio in the 1830s.
And he's poor, and he's lived lived a hard life.
He looks like he's lived some life.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir. I'm glad that you did that because this is, like I told you, this is an interesting story.
Yeah, no, I
but
think we'll have
it's an
to kind
interesting-
of check in every once in a while. Yeah, through the
Yeah,
story.
it's
I
an
like it. Yeah, I
interesting
like it.
read. Yeah. One day, Murlock was found in his cabin, dead. It was not a time and place for coroners and newspapers, and I suppose it was agreed that he had died from natural causes, or I should have been told, and I should remember. I know only that what was probably a sense of the fitness of things of the body was buried near the cabin alongside the grave of his wife, who had preceded him by so many years that local tradition had retained hardly a hint of her existence. That closes the final chapter of this true story, excepting, indeed, the circumstance that many years afterward, in company with an equally intrepid spirit, I penetrated the place and I ventured near to the ruined cabin to throw a stone against it, and I ran away to avoid the ghost, which every well-informed boy thereabout knew haunted the spot.
All right, so this is the author now, the writer. He's gone back as a little boy,
He threw a rock.
and the guy, the old man died.
Yep.
His wife was already dead,
Yep.
and he threw a rock at the window and ran away
Yeah, he was scared of the ghost.
like a bitch. All right,
Like a bitch.
all right, I'm following.
But there is an earlier chapter that's supplied by my grandfather. When Murlock built his cabin and began laying sturdily about with his axe to hew out a farm, the rifle, meanwhile, his means of support, he was young, strong, and full of hope. In that eastern country, whence he came, he had married, as was the fashion, a young woman and always worthy of his honest devotion, who shared the dangers and privations of his lot with a willing spirit and a light heart. There is no known record of her name, of her charms of mind and person. Tradition is silent, and the doubter is at liberty to entertain his doubt, but God forbid that I should share it. Of their affection and happiness, there is abundant assurance in every added day of the man's widowed life. For what but the magnetism of a blessed memory could have chained that venturesome spirit to a lot like that?
Okay, so his old lady that died a long time before him was super
cool.
He really liked her.
Super cool, and he really liked her, and she didn't have
Yeah.
to put up with all the bullshit.
She
But she
wasn't
chose
constantly nagging. Like if he forgot
she
to,
was-
put the dishes in the sink or take the dishes
She
out.
was
of the sink,
super
yeah.
cool,
She was cool.
and liked him.
She knew how to play video games, tell good stories.
Super Smash Brothers,
yeah, okay.
but didn't smash his brothers. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, just like
that's
a
right.
loyal lady.
Nice. But then she croaked, and then he just stuck around there because of the memories of her. So it made him very sad, evidently. So, okay.
One day, Murlock returned from a gunning in a distant part of the forest to find his wife prostrate with fever and delirious. There was no physician within miles, no neighbor, nor was she in any condition to be left to summon for help. So he set back the task of nursing her back to health, but at the end of the third day she fell into unconsciousness. Arid so passed away. Apparently, with never a gleam of returning reason. From what we know of nature like this, we may venture to sketch in some of the details of the outline picture drawn by my grandfather. When convinced that she was dead, Murlock had sense enough to remember that the dead must be prepared for burial. In performance of this sacred duty, he blundered now and again, did certain things incorrectly, but others that he did correctly were done over and over.
He did take her arms off and put her arms where her legs were and then put her legs where her arms are. He was like, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to do. Like
He Miss Potato Headed the fuck out of
he
his
set her
wife.
face to her butt. Which, I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Right?
And
So-
he shrugs as he goes, I mean, lips are lips, right?
hey.
Hey, take my wife. I mean, seriously, take my wife. His occasional failures to accomplish some simple and ordinary act filled him with astonishment, like that of a drunken man who wonders at the suspension of familiar natural laws. He was surprised, too, that he did not weep, surprised and a little ashamed. Surely it is unkind not to weep for the dead. Tomorrow, he said aloud, tomorrow I shall have to make the coffin, Arid dig the grave, and then I shall miss her. but she is no longer in sight. But for now she is dead, of course. But it's all right. It must be all right, somehow. Things cannot be so bad as they seem. He stood over the body in the fading light, adjusting the hair and putting the finishing touches to the simple toilet, doing all mechanically.
To the simple toilet?
Yeah.
Very eloquent. So toilet is also the process of washing oneself, dressing, or attending to one's appearance. So maybe that's what he meant. He was
just washing
getting
her.
her. Yeah. After he had, switched her arms and her legs out and set her face to her butt.
Shut
You're
up.
killing this, by the way. Great job.
Thanks, Bill. He did all things mechanically, with soulless care. And still, through his consciousness, ran an undersense of conviction that all was right, that he should have her again, as before, and everything explained. He had had no experience in grief in his life. His capacity had not been enlarged by use. His heart could not contain it all, nor his imagination rightly conceive it. He did not know he was so hard struck that knowledge would come later, and it would never go. Grief is an artist of powers as various as the instruments upon which he plays his dirges for the dead, evoking from some the sharpest, shrillest notes, and from others the low grave chords that throb recurrent like the slow beating of a distant drum. Some natures it startles, some it stupefies. To one it comes like the stroke of an arrow, stinging at the sensibilities, to a keener life, to another as the blow of a bludgeon, which it crushes, it benumbs. We may conceive Murlock to have been that way affected, for, and here we are upon surer ground, that of conjecture, no sooner had he finished his pious work than sinking into a chair by the side of the table upon which the body lay, and noting how white the profile showed in the deepening gloom, he laid his arms upon the table's edge, and he drops his face into them, tearless yet, and unutterably weary. At that moment came in through the open window a long, wailing sound, like the cry of a lost child in the far deeps of the darkening woods. But the man did not move. Again, and nearer than before, sounded that unearthly cry upon his failing sense. Perhaps it was a wild beast. Perhaps it was a dream, for Murlock must have been asleep. Some hours later, as it afterward appeared, this unfaithful watcher awoke, and lifting his head from his arms, intently listening, he knew not why. There in the black darkness by the side of the dead, recalling all without shock, he strained his eyes to see. He knew not what, though. His senses were all alert, his breath was suspended, his blood had stilled its tides as if to assist in the silence. Who? What had waked him? And where was it? Suddenly the table shook beneath his arms, and the same moment he heard, or fancied that he had heard, a light, soft step, and then another. Sounds as of bare feet upon the wooden floors of the cabin. He was terrified beyond the power to cry out or move. Perforce he waited there in the darkness, through seeming centuries of such dread as one may know, yet live to tell. He tried vainly to speak the dead woman's name, vainly to stretch forth his hands across the table to learn if she were still there. His throat was powerless, his arms and hands were like lead. Then occurred something most frightful. Some heavy body seemed hurled against the table with an impetus that pushed it against his breast so sharply as nearly to overthrow him. And at the same instant he heard and felt the fall of something upon the floor with so violent a thump that the whole house was shaken by the impact. A scuffling ensued, a confusion of sounds impossible to describe. Murlock had risen to his feet. Fear had by force excess forfeited control of his faculties. He flung his hands upon the table. Nothing was there.
So he's woken up. He fell asleep. He's still concerned why he's not crying. His wife's laid on the table. And
he's not sure what woke him. He's not sure what woke him up.
Right. But he's hearing the sound of something fighting. It sounds like two people are scuffling, and he's heard the howl of.
Yes, he fell
outside.
asleep to what he thought was sounded like a cry in the distance.
Right.
And he falls asleep because they call him he's referred to as the unfaithful watcher.
Okay. Yeah.
because he's not looking over his dead wife because he's
Yeah.
so tired.
Man.
He's so tired. So, talks about like his pious nature as to how he's handling the body, and so he falls asleep and to a cry, and so he wakes up and he's not sure to what, but he immediately decides he wants to listen. He wants to listen for that cry again. Is that what caused this? But then there's immediately a scuffle, and he can't tell what it is.
Awesome. Okay.
And the table gets pushed against him so hard. It moves so hard and rapidly towards his chest that it knocks him almost down. Then he's befuddled.
So there's like some poltergeist stuff going on right now.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Well, we shall see. There's a point at which terror may turn to madness, and madness incites to action. From no definite intent, from no motive but the wayward impulse of a madman, Murloc sprang to the wall. With a little groping, seized his loaded rifle, and without aim discharged it. By the flash which lit up the room with vivid illumination, he saw an enormous panther dragging the dead woman towards the window, its teeth fixed in her throat. Then there was darkness blacker than before and silence, and when he returned to consciousness, the sun was high, and the wood vocal with songs of birds.
So he sees a big old panther dragging his wife's corpse out. He shoots, and then he just falls back to
He's like
sleep.
passes out.
He just wakes up again.
He just passes the fuck out,
Man,
wakes
I'm
up some
tired.
hours later. And
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool.
all this excitement, I could stand a nap.
Yeah. I've earned it.
Shit, right? The body lay near the window where the beast had left it when frightened away by the flash and the report of the rifle. The clothing was deranged, the long hair in disorder, the limbs lay anyhow. From the throat, dreadfully lacerated, had issued a pool of blood, not yet entirely coagulated. The ribbon with which he had bound the wrists was broken. The hands were tightly clenched. Between the teeth was a fragment of the animal's ear.
She wasn't dead.
She tried real hard and not got eaten by a panther.
That was the scream that he heard too through the window.
When he heard like that because his wife wasn't dead.
Wow.
She's dead now.
Yeah, I bet she would have been able to fight him off better if her arms weren't where her legs were and her face wasn't sewed to her butt. But that's just me.
That's a good story.
That's a great story, man.
It's a good
you read
story.
It
I like
very
it.
well too, sir. You read it very well.
Thanks, man. It's a difficult read.
Yeah, this is it for spooky season, right?
Yeah, it is.
We rode the hell out of October, buddy,
Look, I tell you this: the spookier season for me is the one coming up.
because you got to spend it with your family.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I'm just saying that jolly fucker that breaks into people's houses at night and drinks their dairy. I'm not a fan of that season.
You don't care for the Christmas.
I don't. It's not for me. It's not for me. And that's why, again, this year we're going to do FAFO Ruins Christmas Part Dose.
Part you.
I'm going to try to do everything I can to ruin Christmas for everybody every year that I can. No, I enjoy sitting out of the barn with my dad by the earth stove, smoking cigars and drinking scotch. Like I enjoy Christmas Eve with my father. That's nice
cool.
in my
Yeah.
family. I like that. The rest of it, I could give two shits about. I like Thanksgiving, but I just really don't care that much about Christmas. I like the fellowship of people.
Yeah, Halloween is definitely my favorite.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. I hope some of those stories were at least a little bit creepy. I hope some of them put you in the mood for the All Hallows Eve. This is going to come out on the 27th
That is correct.
of October. So I think that I'm going to re-release the first Halloween episode. If you've listened this far into the episode, you get to know. I think that I'm going to release the first Halloween spectacular, spooktacular, whatever we called it, on Halloween itself, on
I like it.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday the 31st. I'm going to release that one. So
Hopefully we sound like we've gotten better over the last year.
I don't know. Maybe we sound like we got worse. I'm happy to re-release it though. I need to listen to it before I do that actually. So anyways, I hope that you guys have a really great spooky season. Enjoy the time. I think Halloween brings a lot of people together. It's a very inclusive holiday, and I've always enjoyed that about Halloween. While everybody's dressing up as their ghouls and their goblins, make sure that you're nice to all of the ghouls and goblins, because you have no idea what that ghoulish goblin's going through. No one knows. Behind that mask, it might be a troubled person having a hard time, and just be sweet to him. I'm just speaking truth.
Yeah, I like it.
All right,
I like
so
it.
I love you guys. Thank y'all for listening so much. We've been doing this over a year now, and I couldn't be happier to still be doing it. Bill, what you got?
I'm going to say if you're going to write a letter that you're running away, misspell your own name so you have plausible deniability. That's my advice there.
Oh, that
We
is
learned
good.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to amend mine. Mine's also going to be that don't take Bill to prison with you.
Why were you helping them?
That's all I'm saying. Why were you smiling the whole time? Yeah, don't take Bill to prison. All right, you guys have a great rest of y'all's day. We love you very much. See you. Bye.
It's like